What we had to appreciate is the strategic significance of the bilateral relationship between South Africa and France. And we also had to deeply appreciate at the multilateral level the leadership role that France has actually assumed. They are a permanent member of the United Nations Security Council, and during our 2-year tenure in a non-permanent capacity, we have been able to draw a number of lessons from that experience, and we do recognize the invaluable contribution and proximity to African views that we have actually experienced with French at the level of the P5. So that is the first issue. Secondly, we had to give recognition that French people is quite a reliable ally for the African people, generally speaking, in a multilateral forum such as your G20, where they have actually sided in unity with Africa as it relates to the suspension of the debt issues for your less developed African countries, the majority, of course, which find expression in sub-Saharan Africa. The third issue at the multilateral level, of course, it's the invaluable contribution France have made as it relates to the climate change matter, and the continued contribution to the Green Front, which is unparalleled, and our collaboration with the French people at that particular level. So at the multilateral level, really, those were the substantive issues that we could detail in our discussion. Of course, South African people would want to further appreciate at the bilateral level, what does it mean for South Africa, given our challenges on unemployment, poverty, and inequality? We are excited about the further commitment the French Minister Riester have actually made today. Apart from the fact that as we are speaking, you have more than 370 multinational companies from French in South Africa that are accounting for 20 billion rand in terms of investment. The French people have undertaken to further their commitment at the next investment conference that is 2 weeks away. So we are looking forward to the investment pledges that they are making, and I really hope our people have appreciated it. For example, your gas deposits that has been discovered on the East Coast by a consortium that includes Total, the type of oil and other gas and energy deposits the French companies is explored in Mozambique, northern part of Mozambique. It speaks all about this inclusive prosperity for the African people as a whole. We have said that if you have a strategic partner such as your French people to want to bring about economic prosperity for South Africa and for the rest of Africa, we deeply appreciate it. And we have further recognized the role that the French military, Navy and Air Force, of course, are playing elsewhere in Africa, whether we speak about the Indian Ocean and partnerships with the South African Navy, it relates to the monitoring thereof, or we speak about actually having French collaboration with the African Union in the northern part of Africa, in particular in the Sahel region, is deeply appreciated. And we think it's quite significant that there is a commitment made today that President Macron will actually, during the first quarter of the political calendar year in 2021, visit South Africa on a formal state visit. We think it can only substantively mean this greater certainty towards the road for prosperity for the South African people and our sisters and brothers elsewhere in the continent. There has been an appreciation today with the Minister Riester that the economic mobility of the economic agents of change has been severely impacted, both from the side of Europe and Africa as a whole. We had discussions further to ensure that we strengthen collaboration economically, so between the EU and the AU, and that is quite vital. Remember, the EU is also coming from a dispensation of having experienced what we call the Brexit by the UK. But as South Africa, we see in France a type of steward that will impart further knowledge of the African value system and the economic interests of the African people. But where we have had some significant relations is as it relates to your COVID-19 vaccines, including commitment made by the French government to drive the availability of vaccines in less developed parts of the world, in particular Africa. It means in as much as there is what we call a very heightened lobbying of which country in the world will be first to develop this vaccine. Europe, through a proponent of the French minister, have given us certainty that their commitment is unflinching to ensure that should a vaccine in Europe becomes available, that Africa would be at very close proximity to accessing that. We have also partnered with what we call joint trials as it relates to your vaccine development in COVID-19, and we have with the two presidents, Ramaphosa and President Macron, have also looked at how best to look at that suspension aspect during the period of COVID-19. We are of course encouraged by the significant views of the G20 for 6 months debt suspension instrument. But of course, we are still conversing, and we have engaged the French minister today for a 2-year debt suspension aspect, and I think that is part of the diplomatic world. Yeah.